The night was calm, and the air carried a faint chill that reminded everyone winter wasn't far away. On the outskirts of New York City, nestled among tall buildings and busy streets, stood a luxurious restaurant known for its elegance and exclusivity. It was the kind of place where people came not just to eat but to experience something special, a taste of refinement amid the chaos of life. Inside, the lights were low, creating a cozy atmosphere. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals sparkling softly under the golden glow. The floor was made of polished wood, reflecting the light like a mirror. Every table had crisp white cloths draped over them, adorned with fine silverware and delicate glasses. Waiters moved gracefully between the tables, carrying trays loaded with gourmet dishes. The hum of conversation filled the room, blending with the gentle clinking of forks against plates. At one corner of the restaurant, near a large window overlooking the city skyline, sat William Harper. He was a man in his early 40s, dressed impeccably in a dark navy blue suit that fit him perfectly. His tie was neatly knotted and his shoes gleamed under the soft light. Despite his polished appearance, there was a hint of weariness in his eyes, as though he hadn't slept properly in days. Across the table from him sat his daughter, Lily, a bright-eyed girl of 10 with curly blonde hair tied back into a ponytail. She wore a pretty floral dress, chosen carefully for this occasion. Tonight was supposed to be different. William had promised himself and Lily that he would make more time for her. For months now, work had consumed him completely. As the CEO of a tech company worth billions, he always found excuses to stay late at the office or attend meetings instead of coming home. But tonight he wanted to change that. This dinner was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to reconnect with his daughter and remind her how much she meant to him. As they waited for their food, William tried to strike up a conversation. "So," he began, leaning forward slightly. "How was school today?" Lily glanced up from the menu she'd been pretending to read. Her blue eyes sparkled mischievously. "It was okay," she said with a shrug. "We learned about planets in science class." "Planets?" William raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Which ones?" "All of them," Lily exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement. "Mercury, Venus, Earth. Oh, and Saturn is my favorite because it has rings." William chuckled softly, watching her animated expression. "Saturn is impressive," he agreed. "But don't forget Jupiter. It's the biggest planet." "I know," Lily replied proudly. "And Uranus spins sideways." They both laughed, and for a moment the tension between them seemed to ease. William felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. Maybe they could find their way back to each other. But then, out of nowhere, Lily stopped, talking mid-sentence. Her gaze shifted past William, focusing intently on something or someone across the room. Her smile faded, replaced by an expression of shock and disbelief. "What is it?" William asked, turning to follow her line of sight. At first, he didn't see anything unusual, just another patron enjoying their meal, or perhaps a waiter moving between tables. But then he noticed her, a young woman, probably in her late 20s, standing near the entrance. She wore the restaurant's uniform, a black apron over a white blouse, and was busy clearing plates from a nearby table. Before William could say anything, Lily bolted out of her seat. She ran across the room faster than he thought possible, weaving through chairs and dodging waiters until she reached the woman. Without hesitation, she grabbed the woman's arm and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Mom!" The entire restaurant fell silent. Conversations halted, forks paused midair, and heads turned toward the commotion. The woman froze, clearly startled. She looked down at Lily, confusion etched across her face. "I'm sorry," she stammered, unsure what to do. Do I know you?" William sprang to his feet, heart pounding. He hurried over to the scene, cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," he said quickly, addressing the woman. "She must have mistaken you for someone else." The waitress blinked, still trying to process what had happened. "It's fine," she murmured, though her brow furrowed with concern. Is everything okay? By now, Lily had wrapped her arms tightly around the woman's waist, refusing to let go. Tears streamed down her face as she repeated, "You're my mom. You're my mom." William gently pulled her away, kneeling down to her level. "Lily, sweetheart, this isn't Mom," he said softly, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Remember? Mom passed away. We talked about this." Lily shook her head violently, sobbing uncontrollably. No, it's her. It's really her." The waitress watched the scene unfold, her own emotions swirling beneath the surface. There was something oddly familiar about the child's embrace, something that tugged at her heartstrings in a way she couldn't explain. But before she could dwell on it too long, William scooped Lily into his arms and carried her back to their table, apologizing profusely to the staff and patrons along the way. As they settled back into their seats, William couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had just occurred. Whatever it was, it left him unsettled and curious. Who was that waitress? And why did Lily react the way she did? Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a mystery that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, loss, and the boundaries of human existence. After the chaotic scene at the restaurant, William Harper couldn't stop replaying everything in his mind. He drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel tightly as Lily sat quietly beside him, her tears drying but her expression still troubled. When they arrived, he ushered her inside their house, tucked her into bed, and kissed her goodnight. But even after she fell asleep, William knew sleep wouldn't come easily to him tonight. He made himself a cup of coffee and settled onto the couch in the living room. The clock ticked softly in the background, each second stretching longer than the last. His thoughts kept returning to the waitress, her startled face when Lily screamed "Mom," the way she hesitated before speaking, the flicker of recognition in her eyes that seemed too real to ignore. It was all so strange, so impossible, yet it had happened right in front of him. Why did Lily think the waitress was her mother? Emma, Lily's biological mother, had died years ago in a car accident. William remembered that day vividly. The phone call, the hospital waiting room, the unbearable emptiness afterward. How could Lily mistake someone else for Emma? And why did the waitress seem oddly familiar, not just to Lily but to him as well? Unable to sit still any longer, William grabbed his laptop from the coffee table and started searching online. He typed keywords like memory transfer, cloning, and human experiments into the search bar, hoping to find some explanation. Most of the results were conspiracy theories or science fiction stories, nothing concrete. Frustrated, he leaned back against the couch, rubbing his temples. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a box tucked away in the corner of the room. It was filled with old belongings, things he hadn't touched since Emma's passing. Something inside him urged him to look through it. Maybe there would be clues, answers hidden among her personal items. Carefully, he opened the box and began sifting through its contents. There were photographs of happier times. Emma laughing at the beach, holding baby Lily in her arms. Emma standing next to William on their wedding day, radiant in her white gown. Beneath the photos he found journals, Emma's private writings. Her handwriting was neat and precise, just like she was. Flipping through the pages, he discovered entries detailing her involvement in a secret government project called ECHO. William frowned, reading the notes carefully. According to Emma's journal, ECHO aimed to explore groundbreaking technologies related to human cloning and memory preservation. At first, she dismissed it as nonsense, writing about how skeptical she felt during meetings with scientists. But later entries revealed growing curiosity and fear. She wrote about undergoing tests, donating samples, signing confidentiality agreements. One sentence stood out. "If something happens to me, promise you'll protect our daughter." His hands trembled as he closed the journal. Could this be connected to what happened at the restaurant? Was it possible that the waitress wasn't just a random stranger but somehow linked to Emma's past? The next morning, William decided to act. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Alex Carter, A private investigator he'd worked with before answered on the third ring. "Alex, I need your help," William said without preamble. "I'm looking into someone, and I need you to dig deep." By noon, Alex arrived at William's house. Over coffee, William explained the situation, showing him the journal entries and describing the events at the restaurant. Alex listened intently, jotting down notes. "This sounds complicated," he admitted. "But if anyone can get to the bottom of it, I can." While Alex got to work, William debated reaching out to the waitress directly. He didn't want to scare her off, but he needed answers. Finally, he mustered the courage to call the restaurant and ask for her by name. To his relief, Rachel agreed to meet him later that week. When the day came, William brought Lily along, hoping her presence might ease the awkwardness. They met Rachel at a small cafe near her apartment. She looked nervous but polite, glancing between father and daughter as they took their seats. "Thank you for meeting us, one." The days following their meeting with Rachel felt like an eternity to William Harper. Every morning he woke up wondering if the DNA results would arrive that day. Each night he went to bed replaying every detail of their conversation in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to happen, something that would change not only his life, but also Lily's and Rachel's. Rachel, too, was struggling to process everything. Since agreeing to take the DNA test, she'd been plagued by strange dreams. Fragments of memories, or what felt like memories, flashed through her mind. A child laughing, a man smiling warmly, a car speeding down a dark road. None of it made sense, yet it all felt so real. She found herself drawn to Lily in ways she couldn't explain, as though some invisible thread connected them across time and space. Meanwhile, Alex Carter worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Using his contacts and resources, he dug deeper into Rachel's background. What he uncovered shocked even him. Rachel's official records showed she had been born and raised in Ohio, just as she claimed. But there were inconsistencies, small details that didn't quite add up. For instance, her birth certificate listed a hospital that no longer existed, and her social security number appeared to have been issued years before her supposed birth date. Alex shared these findings with William, who grew increasingly convinced that Rachel was somehow tied to Emma's past. "It's like she's living two lives," William said during one of their phone calls. "One here now as Rachel, and another somewhere else as Emma." Finally, the day came when the DNA results were ready. William called Rachel immediately, his voice trembling with anticipation. "Can we meet?" he asked. The lab sent back the results. Rachel hesitated, unsure if she was ready for the truth. But curiosity, and perhaps something deeper, pushed her to agree. They decided to meet at a quiet park near the city, where they could talk without distractions. Lily tagged along, holding tightly to Rachel's hand as though afraid to let go. When they arrived, William handed Rachel a thin envelope containing the report. Her hands shook as she opened it, skimming through the technical jargon until she reached the conclusion. Her eyes widened, and she gasped audibly. "It says, 'I'm genetically identical to Emma,'" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "How is that possible?" William nodded solemnly. "I think you're a clone," he admitted. "Not just physically, but maybe mentally too. Some part of Emma's consciousness might have been transferred into you." Rachel sank onto a nearby bench, overwhelmed by the revelation. "This doesn't make any sense," she murmured. "I've lived my whole life believing I'm someone else. How can I be her?" Lily climbed onto the bench beside her, wrapping her arms around Rachel's waist. "You're my mom," she said firmly. "No matter what the papers say, I know it's true." Rachel hugged her back, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't just Rachel from Ohio. Maybe she carried pieces of Emma within her, fragments of a life she couldn't remember, but somehow still felt over. The next few days, Rachel began piecing together her new reality. With William's help, she delved further into the Echo project, uncovering more about its purpose and scope. It turned out that the experiment hadn't just focused on cloning. It had aimed to preserve human consciousness, allowing memories, and emotions to live on even after death. The technology was groundbreaking, but also controversial. Many believed it crossed ethical boundaries, blurring the line between life and artificial creation. As Rachel absorbed this information, she started noticing subtle changes in herself. Certain smells triggered vivid flashbacks. The scent of lavender reminded her of bedtime stories, while the aroma of coffee brought back images of lazy Sunday mornings. She began recognizing places she'd never visited before, streets she'd never walked, faces she'd never met. It was as though Emma's life was slowly merging with hers, filling in the gaps of her own fragmented existence. Despite the overwhelming nature of these discoveries, Rachel refused to pull away. Instead, she embraced her connection to Lily and William, finding comfort in their love and support. Together, they navigated the complexities of her dual identity, learning to accept the parts of Emma that lingered within her while honoring the person she had become. One evening, as they sat together in William's living room, Rachel spoke openly about her feelings for the first time. "I don't know who I am anymore," she confessed. "But I do know this. I care about you both more than anything. And if being Emma means loving you the way she did, then maybe it's okay." William smiled softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this," he promised. "We'll figure it out together." For the first time in weeks, Rachel felt a glimmer of hope. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't just a clone or a memory. She was Rachel and Emma, and whatever beautiful combination of the two destiny had created. As days turned into weeks, Rachel found herself spending more time with William and Lily. Their home became a sanctuary where she could explore her newfound identity without judgment. It wasn't easy. There were moments when doubt crept in, when the weight of carrying Emma's memories felt overwhelming. But having them by her side made it bearable. One afternoon, while Lily was at school, William invited Rachel to join him in going through Emma's belongings again. "There might be more clues," he explained. "Something we missed before." They settled in the living room, spreading out boxes filled with photographs, letters, and other keepsakes. Rachel picked up a framed picture of Emma and Lily together, taken years ago during a picnic. She traced the edges of the frame with her fingertips, marveling at how much Lily looked like her mother. "She has her smile," Rachel murmured, almost to herself. William nodded, watching her closely. "You do too," he said gently. "Sometimes when you laugh or tilt your head just right, it's like seeing her again." Rachel lowered the photo, her cheeks flushing slightly. "Do you think that's strange?" she asked hesitantly. "That I remind you of her?" "No," William replied quickly. "It's comforting, like a part of her is still here." The comment lingered in the air as they continued sorting through the items. Rachel came across a small leather-bound journal tucked beneath a stack of papers. Opening it, she discovered pages filled with Emma's neat handwriting. The entries detailed her thoughts about the Echo Project, her fears, hopes, and ethical concerns. One passage caught Rachel's attention. "If this works, will my clone truly be me? Or just a copy? Will she have her own soul, her own dreams? Or will she carry the burden of my life, unable to escape who I was?" Rachel read the words aloud, her voice trembling. "Do you think she knew?" she asked, looking at William. "Knew that someday someone like me would exist?" William sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "I don't know. But reading this, it feels like she prepared for it. Like she wanted whoever came after her to understand." Rachel closed the journal, lost in thought. For so long she had struggled with the idea of being a copy, a shadow version of someone else. But now she realized that Emma hadn't seen her that way. Emma had seen her as a continuation, a chance to live beyond death, to love and be loved again. Later that evening, Lily returned home from school, bursting through the door with excitement. "Guess what?" she exclaimed, dropping her backpack on the floor. "We're learning about DNA in science class." Rachel smiled, amused by the coincidence. "Really? What did you learn?" That everyone's DNA is unique, Lily said proudly. Then, tilting her head, she added, except mine and Mom's. Our DNA matches because she's, well, you know. Rachel froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. But then, seeing the sincerity in Lily's eyes, she knelt down to meet her gaze. I'm not exactly your mom, she said softly. But I care about you just as much as she did. Does that make sense? Lily nodded vigorously. Yes, because you're still my mom. Just a different kind of mom. Her simple logic brought tears to Rachel's eyes. She hugged Lily tightly, feeling a surge of gratitude for the child's unwavering acceptance. In that moment, she understood that labels didn't matter. What mattered was the bond they shared, a bond stronger than genetics or memory. Over dinner that night, William brought up another discovery Alex had made. Echo wasn't just about cloning, he explained. They were experimenting with neural mapping, recording and transferring human consciousness. That's why you have flashes of Emma's memories. Parts of her mind are literally inside you. Rachel listened quietly, absorbing the information. So I'm not just a clone, she said slowly. I'm a carrier of her soul? In a way, yes, William admitted. But you're also your own person. You have your own thoughts, feelings, experiences. Don't ever forget that. The conversation shifted to practical matters, how they would handle this revelation moving forward. Rachel decided she wanted to stay close to William and Lily, not just as a friend, but as part of their family. They agreed to take things one step at a time, allowing Rachel to adjust to her new role without pressure. That night, as Rachel lay in bed, she reflected on everything that had happened. Her life had changed so drastically in such a short time. Yet amidst the confusion and uncertainty, she felt a growing sense of peace. She wasn't alone anymore. She had people who loved her, who accepted her for who and what she was. For the first time, life began to settle into a new rhythm for William Harper, Rachel, and Lily. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of confusion, awkwardness, and even sadness, but they were learning to navigate this unusual situation together. Rachel had decided to stay close to them, not just because of her connection to Emma, but because she genuinely cared about William and Lily. In return, they welcomed her into their lives, treating her with kindness and patience. One Saturday morning, William suggested taking Lily to the park. It's been a while since we've all gone out, he said over breakfast. What do you think, Rachel? Rachel hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should join them. She didn't want to intrude on their father-daughter time. But before she could respond, Lily jumped up from her chair, grabbing Rachel's hand. Please come, she begged, her eyes wide with excitement. You can help me catch butterflies. Seeing the joy in Lily's face, Rachel couldn't say no. Okay, she agreed with a smile. Let's go. At the park, the air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. Lily ran ahead, her laughter echoing through the trees as she chased after colorful butterflies. William walked alongside Rachel, his hands tucked into his pockets. For a while, neither of them spoke, simply enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. Finally, William broke the silence. How are you holding up? He asked gently. With everything, I mean. Rachel glanced at him, considering her answer. It's complicated, she admitted. Some days I feel like I'm figuring things out. Other days it's like I don't know who I am anymore. William nodded understandingly. That's normal, I think. You're carrying so much. Emma's memories, your own life, our expectations. It's a lot to handle. I just don't want to let anyone down, Rachel confessed. Especially Lily. You won't, William assured her. She loves you, Rachel. Not because you're Emma, but because you're you. Don't forget that. His words brought tears to her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. Thank you, she whispered. I needed to hear that. As they continued walking, Rachel noticed Lily waving frantically at her from across the field. Come on, the girl shouted. Look what I found. Rachel jogged over to where Lily stood, crouching down beside her. In the grass lay a tiny butterfly, its wings shimmering in shades of orange and black. "It's beautiful," Rachel murmured, marveling at the delicate creature. "Can we keep it?" Lily asked hopefully. Rachel shook her head. "We should let it go. Butterflies belong in the sky, not in jars." Lily pouted but eventually nodded. Carefully, she cupped her hands around the butterfly and released it into the air. They watched as it fluttered upward, disappearing into the clouds. "Goodbye, little friend," Lily whispered. Later, as they sat on a bench eating ice cream, Rachel felt a sense of calm wash over her. Watching William and Lily interact, seeing the way they laughed and teased each other, reminded her of the journal entries she'd read. Emma had written often about how much she loved these simple moments, the quiet joys of family life. Now, Rachel understood why. That evening, back at home, Rachel helped Lily get ready for bed. As she tucked her in, the girl reached up and hugged her tightly. "I'm glad you're here, Mom," she said softly. Rachel kissed her forehead, her heart swelling with emotion. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Downstairs, William waited for her in the living room. He handed her a steaming mug of tea and gestured for her to sit. "There's something I've been meaning to talk to you about," he began. Rachel stiffened slightly, bracing herself for whatever was coming next. "What is it?" "It's about Echo," William explained. "Alex found more information about the project. Apparently, they weren't just experimenting with cloning and memory transfer. They were also trying to create a bridge between life and death. A way for people to live on, not just physically, but spiritually." Rachel frowned, processing the revelation. "So, what does that mean for me?" "It means you're more than just a clone," William said carefully. "You're a continuation of Emma. Her soul, her essence. It's part of you now. That's why Lily feels such a strong connection to you. Why we feel it too." The idea was both beautiful and overwhelming. Rachel took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Does that make me less of myself?" she asked quietly. "Or am I just borrowing her life?" "No," William replied firmly. "You're not borrowing anything. You're building your own life, Rachel. Yes, you carry pieces of Emma within you, but that doesn't diminish who you are. You're unique, just like everyone else." His words stayed with her long after they went to bed that night. Lying in the darkness, Rachel thought about everything she'd learned, and everything she still had to discover. She realized that being connected to Emma didn't mean losing herself. Instead, it gave her a chance to grow, to embrace both her past and her future. For the first time in weeks, Rachel fell asleep feeling hopeful. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she wouldn't face them alone. She had a family now, a real one, and that made all the difference. Weeks turned into months, and Rachel grew more comfortable in her new life with William and Lily. Though questions about her identity still lingered, she no longer felt consumed by them. Instead, she focused on building memories, moments that were uniquely hers, even as they intertwined with Emma's past. One crisp autumn afternoon, William suggested visiting Emma's grave. "It's been a while since we've been there," he said gently, "and I think it might help for all of us." Rachel hesitated, unsure how she would feel standing before Emma's resting place. Would it bring clarity, or only deepen her confusion? Still, she agreed to go, trusting that William knew what was best. The cemetery was peaceful, its grounds blanketed with fallen leaves that crunched softly underfoot. The sky glowed in shades of gold and orange as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Together, the three of them walked along the winding paths until they reached Emma's gravestone. Lily knelt down first, placing a bouquet of fresh flowers at the base of the stone. "Hi, Mom," she whispered, brushing away a stray leaf. "We miss you." William stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. He didn't say anything at first, simply gazing at the inscription. Emma Harper, loving mother, devoted wife. After a moment, he cleared his throat. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly, "for giving us Rachel. She's brought so much light back into our lives." Rachel stepped forward hesitantly, feeling out of place yet strangely drawn to the moment. She knelt beside Lily, running her fingers over the smooth surface of the gravestone. "I don't know if you can hear me," she began, her voice trembling, "but I want you to know I'm trying my best to be the person you'd want me to be, to take care of them like you did." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't try to hide them. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully acknowledge the weight of what she carried. Not just Emma's memories, but her love, her hopes, her dreams. It wasn't a burden. It was a gift. Lily wrapped an arm around Rachel's shoulders, pulling her close. "You're doing great, Mom," she said confidently. "Really." William joined them, crouching down to form a small circle. "We're a team," he added with a faint smile. "All of us. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." As they sat there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the cemetery, Rachel felt something shift inside her. The doubts and fears that had haunted her for so long began to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging. She realized that she didn't need to choose between being Rachel and being Emma. She could be both, and neither. She could simply be herself, shaped by the lives that came before her but defined by the choices she made every day. After a while, they stood up and prepared to leave. Before turning away, Rachel glanced back at the gravestone one last time. "Thank you," she murmured, almost too softly for the others to hear. Then, taking Lily's hand, she followed William back toward the car. On the drive home, the mood was lighter than it had been in weeks. Lily chattered excitedly about school and friends while William shared stories from work. Rachel listened, smiling at their easy banter. She felt grateful, not just for the family she had found, but for the journey that had brought them together. That evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Rachel noticed something different about the way they interacted. There was an unspoken understanding now, a deeper connection that hadn't been there before. They weren't just navigating a strange situation anymore. They were truly becoming a family. Later, after Lily went to bed, Rachel stayed up with William, sipping tea in the living room. "Do you think she forgives me?" Rachel asked, suddenly breaking the silence. "Emma, I mean, for stepping into her role like this." William set his cup down, considering the question carefully. "I think she'd be proud of you," he said finally. "Proud of the way you've embraced this challenge. Proud of the love you've given Lily and me." Rachel nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. She knew there would always be unanswered questions, moments when she doubted herself or wondered what Emma would have done differently. But for now, that was enough. She didn't need all the answers to move forward. She just needed faith. In herself, in William, in Lily, and in the bond they shared. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Rachel dreamed not of fragmented memories, but of the future, of laughter-filled days at the park, cozy evenings around the dinner table, and quiet mornings spent watching the sunrise. She dreamed of a life built not on loss but on love, a life where she belonged, holy and calm. Life continued to unfold in unexpected yet beautiful ways for William Harper, Rachel, and Lily. Though they were still navigating the complexities of their unique family dynamic, they found comfort in the everyday moments, the kind that didn't require explanations or second-guessing. These small joys became the foundation of their bond, grounding them during uncertain times. Rachel had taken on a role somewhere between caregiver and mother, finding her own rhythm in caring for Lily. She helped her with homework, read bedtime, stories, and joined her in silly games that left them both giggling uncontrollably. At first, Rachel worried about overstepping boundaries, but Lily's enthusiastic embrace of her presence quickly put those fears to rest. "You're my mom now," Lily declared one afternoon while coloring pictures at the kitchen table. "Even if you're different." Rachel smiled, setting aside her worries. "Different can be good, right?" "Definitely," Lily replied, without hesitation, holding up a crayon-scribbled masterpiece. "See, I made this just for you." The picture showed three stick figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. One figure was taller, another slightly smaller, and the third, tiny enough to fit under the other's arms. Rachel recognized herself, William, and Lily immediately. Her heart swelled with gratitude as she pinned the drawing to the fridge. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a symbol of the family they were creating together. Meanwhile, William worked to balance his responsibilities as a father and CEO. With his growing relationship with Rachel, he hadn't planned for any of this, falling in love again after losing Emma, but he couldn't deny the feelings stirring within him. Rachel wasn't Emma, but she carried pieces of her spirit, blending them seamlessly with her own personality. Their connection felt natural, as though fate had woven their lives together long before they realized it. One evening, as they sat together in the living room after Lily went to bed, William finally voiced what had been on his mind. "I want to thank you," he said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. "For everything you've done. For Lily. For me. You've brought so much light back into our lives." Rachel looked up from the photo album she'd been flipping through, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. "I should be thanking you," she replied. "You've given me a home, a purpose, a family." William reached out, taking her hand in his. "We're lucky to have you," he said earnestly. "And not because of who you remind us of, but because of who you are." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of his words hung in the air, filling the space between them with warmth and understanding. Rachel squeezed his hand gently, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I never thought I'd find this," she admitted. "A place where I belong." "You do belong here," William assured her. "With us." As weeks turned into months, Rachel began exploring hobbies and interests she hadn't considered before. She discovered a love for painting, spending hours in the corner of the living room working on colorful landscapes and abstract designs. Lily often joined her, adding her own imaginative touches to the canvases. Together they created art that reflected their shared experiences, a blend of memories old and new. At the same time, Rachel continued grappling with the ethical implications of her existence. She read books about cloning and consciousness, trying to understand the science behind her creation. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit alone in the study, staring at the journals Emma had left behind. They were a reminder of the woman whose life had shaped hers, a woman who had once faced the same questions and fears. But instead of letting those thoughts overwhelm her, Rachel chose to focus on the present. She attended therapy sessions to process her emotions, learning to accept both her past and her future. Slowly but surely, she stopped seeing herself as a copy or an experiment. Instead, she embraced her identity as someone entirely new, someone who carried the best parts of Emma while forging her own path. One day, during a family outing to the park, Rachel noticed how easily they interacted now. William pushed Lily on the swings while Rachel snapped photos, capturing candid moments of laughter and joy. Later, they spread out a blanket under a tree, sharing sandwiches and fruit as leaves fluttered around them. It was simple, ordinary, even, but it felt extraordinary to Rachel. This was what family meant. Not perfection, but connection. That night, as they tucked Lily into bed, Rachel paused to kiss her forehead. "Good night, sweetheart," she whispered. "Sleep tight." "Good night, Mom," Lily murmured sleepily, clutching her stuffed bunny. William lingered in the doorway, watching the scene with a tender smile. Once Lily was asleep, he turned to Rachel. "Do you ever wonder what the future holds?" he asked. Quietly. "All the time," Rachel admitted. "But I think we'll figure it out together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a team." William nodded, pulling her into a hug. "That's all we can do," he agreed. "Take it one step at a time," and so they did. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, built not on the mysteries of the past, but on the love and trust they shared in the present. For the first time in years, William felt hopeful about the future. And Rachel? She finally felt whole. Weeks passed and life in the small town began to settle into a new kind of normal. The Iron Vipers were gone, arrested or scattered after their failed attempts to retaliate. With the stolen weapons recovered and evidence submitted, the authorities officially cleared Jake Malone and his crew of any wrongdoing. For the first time in months, the Hells Angels could ride without fear of being targeted by either the law or rival gangs. Lena's diner became busier than ever. Word had spread far and wide about what happened, drawing curious visitors from neighboring towns who wanted to see the place where a brave woman stood up to both the cops and criminals. Some came out of admiration, others out of sheer curiosity, but all left impressed by Lena's warmth and hospitality. The bikers continued to frequent the diner, treating it like a second home. They weren't just customers. They were family, now. Every day they filled the booths and tables, sharing stories, jokes, and meals. At first, some of Lena's regular patrons seemed unsure about the sudden influx of leather-clad strangers. But it didn't take long for everyone to realize that these men weren't so different from anyone else. Beneath their tough exteriors were hearts full of loyalty and gratitude. Joe Parker often joined the bikers for breakfast, regaling them with tales of his younger days when he used to ride motorcycles himself. Karen Blake brought her kids almost daily, letting them marvel at the shiny bikes parked outside while she chatted with Lena over coffee. Even Officer Rogers stopped by occasionally, though he avoided making eye contact with Jake whenever possible. One sunny morning, Lena arrived at the diner earlier than usual. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and buttery pancakes. As she flipped on the lights, she noticed something unusual: a bouquet of wildflowers sitting on the counter, tied together, with a simple ribbon. Beside it was a note written in bold handwriting: "Thank you for everything." She smiled softly, recognizing Jake's handiwork. Over the past few weeks, he'd become a fixture in her life, always checking in to make sure she was okay. Though they hadn't spoken much about the future, Lena knew their bond would last a lifetime. As the morning went on, the diner filled with its usual mix of customers. Jake sat at his favorite booth near the back, nursing a cup of black coffee, while reading a newspaper. When Lena approached him, tray in hand, he looked up with a grin. "How's business today?" he asked casually. "Better than ever," she replied, setting down a fresh pot of coffee. "I owe a lot of that to you and your crew." Jake shook his head. "You did this yourself, Lena. You're the reason people keep coming back." She chuckled, brushing off the compliment. "Well, I couldn't have done it without my friends." The word felt strange on her tongue. Friends, but also right. In such a short time, her world had expanded in ways she never imagined. What started as an ordinary morning in a quiet diner had turned into a whirlwind of danger, courage, and unexpected alliances. And through it all, she discovered something invaluable: the strength of community. Later that afternoon, as the lunch rush slowed down, Lena stepped outside to take a break. Leaning against the railing, she watched the sunlight dance across the parking lot, highlighting the rows of motorcycles lined up neatly beside ordinary cars. It was a perfect picture of balance, a symbol of how two very different worlds had come together under one roof. Karen Blake joined her, holding a steaming cup of tea. "You've really built something special here," she said warmly. "This place feels alive again." Lena nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "It's not just mine anymore. Everyone who walks through those doors makes it what it is." Karen smiled, glancing toward the bikers chatting animatedly inside. "Even them?" "Especially them," Lena corrected with a laugh. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden hues over the town, Lena took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. Protecting Jake had been a risk, one that could have cost her dearly, but it had also opened doors she never expected. Her small act of defiance had sparked a chain reaction, bringing people together and proving that even in the face of fear, kindness and courage could prevail. That evening, as she locked up the diner and prepared to head home, Jake appeared once more. He leaned against his motorcycle,